We're going to start. Good evening. It is 6:30. Mayor Pro Tem Smith, will you lead us in the invocation, please?
Yes, please join me and stand. Thank you so much. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this evening. Lord, thank you that we get to come together as a community. Thank you for an exciting weekend that we've had here in Canyon Lake, and everyone was safe, and all that's going on in the world. It's so refreshing that we get to come together as Canyon Lakers and enjoy so many of the amenities of our home. Thank you for continuing to give to us, Lord. Let us be reminded of you in all that we do, Lord, and in your name, amen.
Amen. Councilmember Dean, would you please lead us in the flag salute?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
City Clerk to conduct the roll call.
Councilmember Dane.
Here.
Councilmember Green.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith.
Here.
Councilmember Welty.
Here.
Mayor Castillo.
Here.
All present.
Thank you. City Attorney, is there anything to report out of closed session?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I did want to note for the record that the City Council voted 5-0 to add a second case to item B under closed session, and that there was no reportable action out of closed session today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Moving on to the approval of City Council agenda. Mr. City Manager, are there any changes?
Yes, Madam Mayor. We have one addition to the agenda. It's an urgency item. It is adoption of resolution number 2021-60, authorizing the city manager to award a contract to the second lowest bidder for the roof rehabilitation project, bid number 2021-02. And we recommend that we take that item up as the first business item after the public hearings.
Okay, so then I will need a motion and a second to approve the agenda with the addition of that urgency item.
Motion.
Second.
Oh, okay. Did you get that?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, roll call vote.
Councilmember Dane.
Aye.
Councilmember Green.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Welty.
Aye.
Mayor Castillo.
Aye.
Motion carried to approve the agenda with the addition of the urgency item.
Okay, so we have Citizen of the Month. So today, for our October Citizen of the Month, we have Oleg Zabogursky. Did I say that right? Okay, I've been practicing. Canyon Lakers, if you don't know Oleg, I really wish you would make the time to introduce yourself to him. He is an amazing citizen of our city. He's come to a couple of our coffee meetings. I got to know him through that. And if you haven't seen him, he is a participant in almost every event. He comes out with his video camera. He makes videos on his own time for our community. And most recently, the video that he made was the 9/11 tribute. And if you haven't seen this video, it's on YouTube. It is just phenomenal. The time and talent that was put into this was just second to none. He spent so many hours of his own time editing, interviewing people, making sure the lighting was perfect, and it was just a phenomenal video, and it showcased our community so well, and it was an amazing tribute to 9/11. And so for that reason, you are our October Citizen of the Month. We are grateful for you, and like I said, I hope all of the community members in Canyon Lake take the time to meet you because you are just a phenomenal member of our community. So thank you. And we have a certificate for you. Do you want to say anything?
Yes,
Okay, good.
thank you. We almost 1 year live here in Canyon Lake, and I feel, and my family feel like small part, big, friendly family. Canyon Lake for us, from first day, friendly family. We appreciate it. Thank you so much.
We're proud of you. Thank you so much. Can we get a picture? Okay.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2.
Great. Thank you so much for coming.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
Next two community reports. We're going to try to keep these to 3 minutes each. First, we have our Vice President Darcy Burke from the Elsinore Valley Municipal Water District. Hi.
Hello, Mayor, council members, staff, residents. I won't talk about the drought, so I will keep it at 3 minutes or less. One of the things I wanted to do first was congratulate the city on your retaining the title for your city golf tournament, and a special kudos to Tyler, who on your staff did a great amount of work. I'm sure you did too, Anna, but he was really out there recruiting, and he actually got us to participate. So although we were not a city, Elsinore Valley did win the other division of the golf tournament, and that was their very first time out, so I was very proud of them. I also think it kind of shows some camaraderie where we've come in the last 3 years. We probably would not have had that participation from all entities, and I think that just kind of is a demonstration to our residents that we have come a long way. The sewer rehabilitation project on San Joaquin West will start in the next week or two. Each of the impacted residents have received a letter, they'll receive a phone call, and we'll do some outreach. I would also encourage people that the water year, of course, we can't be like anybody else. We start October 1st, and it rained. So please, 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 cut back your outdoor water use, even if it's just one day. That would make a huge difference. It'll also go a long way to letting the governor know that he does not need to put in draconian rationing or restrictions, both for our businesses and our residents. So I would appreciate that very much. And if you have any questions, as always, anybody can call me, especially if you don't know how to change your sprinkler timer and you're not a YouTube aficionado. We do have staff that can help you change that setting and those types of things. We have been doing a lot of things at the Water District. We have an expansion project going on for recycled water. We're starting a horse thief expansion project for wastewater. And so we're looking at about $150 million worth of projects in the next 18 months. And I'm happy to say that probably $100 million of that is grant funding that we've been able to get, or low interest or no interest loans. So we're really doing our best to make sure that we can provide services, we grow and expand, and serve the customers we have, and really minimize the impact to rates. So that's all I have. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
No, awesome job.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Comment is, this has to do with water, so I thought I'd bring it into this thing. We have an alum treatment scheduled next week, starting on Monday, so when you see the boats out in the lake, don't be surprised or don't be frightened. It's the alum treatment. We've been doing it for a number of years, literally almost every 6 months for a number of years. It has had some success in keeping the algae growth down. I will tell you, I think Darcy will agree, that water quality and lake quality is a moving target, and we have to continue to move ahead to provide better and better ways to do help with our water quality and maintain our lake. But just a reminder that when the boats are out this week and next week, don't be frightened. Of course, if it storms or rains, they may have to reschedule. I've given the brochure to the POA, and I believe the POA is going to put it out in their Friday newsletter, so we also have an opportunity to get the information there.
Right. Thank you for that reminder.
No?
Are we good? Thank you.
That's it, thank you.
Thank you, Darcy. Okay, moving on to Canyon Lake Property Owners Association, President Commission. Hi, welcome.
Well, unofficial POA business, but congratulations. Darcy beat me to it, but you guys held on to your title for a second year and beat the Battle of the Cities. The city championship was a great success, and a large part because the city does support it, and not only financially, but with players and all, and we really appreciate that. I would like to take a minute to just mention the winners. City championship, the men's division was Kevin Lee from outside Canyon Lake, which is what we want to do. We want to focus on bringing people into Canyon Lake, and Kevin had an outstanding 2 days and won the men's division. And Mia Golovich won it for the second time in 2 years, a young lady that won the ladies division. Of course, the city won their division in Battle of the Cities, and EVMWD won their Scramble division, so they were excited about that. So it was a great event, and we do POA and the tournament chairman wants to thank you all for that. POA business is the software transition. It's going well, and we have a website that will be up and running soon. It'll be all new. I haven't seen any part of it, but I understand it's going to be really well and work well for the community. And we will have online reservations system as well. So campground, golf, and events, you can register online. Our irrigation system on the golf course, I don't know if the golfers know as much, but we're recovering from that project, and it's wrapping up. So we're glad to have that behind us. And the golf course is closed. It will be closed on the 11th to the 31st for a normal overseeding process. So just want everybody aware. The restaurant will be closed for a week during that time from October 11th to the 17th. And lastly, I just want to mention that the Country Club this Friday has a Frank Sinatra tribute at the Country Club. So it sounds like it will be a nice evening. I suggest people make a reservation. So if there's any other comments or questions, I'd be happy to answer.
No?
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, Chamber of Commerce update by President Odell.
President Odell was unable to make it tonight, but will be back next month.
Okay, thank you so much. Public safety update from our lieutenant. Welcome.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council members, and staff. I have the public safety report for the month of October, which covers September. Deputies responded to or generated 369 calls for service, which is an increase from 15 from last month. There was also 11 Part 1 crimes reported in the city of Canyon Lake, which is 3 assaults, 3 burglaries, 2 thefts, and 3 motor vehicle thefts. There were no homicides, rapes, robberies, or arsons. Deputies also made 1 public intoxication arrest, wrote 3 traffic citations, made 2 DUI arrests, 1 traffic collision, and overall made 9 arrests. 1 of those was for drug possession, and 5 were for outstanding warrants.
Any questions? I know we had asked about having the deputy more visible on Railroad Canyon. Is that going to be, I haven't seen it, so I'm just wondering.
I
how's that
put it
going?
out to the deputies and to the sergeants. I wanted to start see them out there more.
Okay,
I have no way of really watching to see if they are doing that. I have pulled up their logs to see what they're doing, and between the times that they're taking calls, they're actually, I've seen some traffic stops, I've seen some plates being ran, high visibility type stuff, so they are out there.
okay.
They're just not out on Railroad Canyon like I want them to be. They're kind of sporadic all over. So I'll make sure that I tell them specifically Railroad Canyon and for the reason.
Okay,
But most of the downtime when I'm looking at the logs is between midnight and 5 in the morning. The rest of the other time, it's fairly steady between doing follow-ups and taking calls and that type of thing. So we're still addressing it.
Okay.
Hopefully get them into that mode of out there doing traffic stops when they're not actually taking calls or doing follow-ups and that type of thing.
all right.
I also sent you the average response times for the month. As you can see, priority 1 calls were up from, well, not up from last year, but 5.36 to 9.46. The rest of the priority 2s, 3s, and 4s calls are down quite a bit. Now, if you look at the priority 1 call, I had my crime analyst take a look and see why, because there's usually a reason why there's such a big jump. And we had 1 call for service that was a juvenile medical aid, which took 18 minutes of response for the deputy. But the reason the deputy was responding code, CAL FIRE got there within minutes. Whenever they go on scene, since it's a medical aid, we drop off, unless they request us to expedite for some reason. So they got there fairly quickly. The deputy dropped off. So it took a longer response. What should have happened on this is the deputy should have changed the call from a juvenile medical aid, which is a priority 1, to an AOD to CAL FIRE, which drops it to a 3. So that call wouldn't even have been on there. So it bumped it up from 6 minutes to 9 minutes, roughly. So that was the reason for the increase in that. And once it's done and they close the call out, we can't go back and change it. So I'll try to look at those, and if I see a jump or a reason for it, I'll let you know every time.
Okay. Any questions from council? Yes.
Lieutenant Rouse, for your Code 3 response, as your deputies do, is it all Part 1, or is there criteria for the deputy to go?
Part 1s and a few Part 2s, but it's mostly Part 1s are going to be a response.
Okay.
Code response.
And is it possible, and I'm not sure you're the right agency, for us to do a traffic count on Railroad Canyon for peak loads of traffic? I know in the morning we're busy because it's a major thoroughfare from the freeways. Also in the evenings, but we're also having different times of the evenings. We're getting a lot of traffic, and then we're getting the, I'll call it the racetrack traffic. So do you guys do the counters that you put across the roads to count up? Who does that?
No, we do not. I know there's companies out there that do the speed surveys
So
and that type of thing.
it's not something in your agency?
No, it's not.
Okay. That's one of the discussions we've had, to get us kind of find out how many people are using the boulevard on a daily basis, because I think there's an estimate, and it's probably low, because I happened to travel east yesterday, and the traffic coming this way, and then when I returned to come back west, it was really busy. So I just think it's probably, from a management standpoint, it's probably a good idea that we have at least a traffic count to figure out what our peaks are
Okay.
and the numbers.
Now, I may be able to do that through the flock cameras. I'll check with them and see.
Okay.
Because they count every vehicle that comes through and catch the plates. So they might have a way of doing that. So I'll check with them.
Oh, that'd be
to See if
perfect.
I can log in and see how many vehicles are coming through at a given time.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
I did have a question. The aggravated assaults that are listed for the month of September, were those in the gates or outside in the town center?
It's usually both. A little
Okay.
bit of both. I would say, looking back at the calls, there were 3. I think 2 were outside, 1 was in this month. And normally aggravated assaults, domestic violence, any type of stabbing, any fight where there's some type of injury, those become aggravated assaults. These numbers might be a little bit higher than what the UCR data is, because sometimes, I don't get those UCR data until later in the month, and sometimes I'm off a little bit, especially with those. So it's usually a little lower when the UCR data comes in, but I go through each call and read them
Right.
and determine whether it could or could not be.
Okay. So your recollection of these are that perhaps one was within the actual residential community and perhaps 2 were in the town center?
Yes, I know one of those was a stabbing in the town center.
Okay. Because there was a stabbing and then another stabbing, right? On another month? Is this the stabbing that was in the parking lot?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions about that?
Thank you.
No, I have one. I believe it was, Madam Mayor, I think you got the date in my head, but I think it was last Friday. When did we go to Sacramento? Last Friday? We had a car that drove off the road. It was a big incident.
Are you talking about the rollover
Yeah.
off the 74?
Yeah. No
Okay.
one came for like, what was it, 20 or 30 minutes?
That was off the east gate.
Correct. Did you hear about, did you see that?
The off-road area? Yeah.
Yeah.
Our traffic team was out there.
Yeah, so that was quite a scary incident that kind of went throughout the community just in response time. Just wondering if that passed through your desk or not and you saw it.
It did, but I can't recall the response times
Okay.
on that. I can look into it and see.
If you don't mind, there's just some accusations out there from folks of concern, and I know it was a difficult situation anyways, but I just want to make sure that, we're looking into it, so.
And I don't know if we arrived first or a fire arrived first, not sure.
Yeah, the comments were made, it was 20 to 30 minutes without any response from anyone.
Yeah.
From anyone.
Okay, I'll
So-
check into that. Seems like quite a bit of a time gap.
Yeah, exactly. So I just want to make sure that's, accurate or whatnot, but
I'll check into that.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Anything? Thank you for your time.
Welcome.
Okay, moving right along. Fire, welcome. How are you?
How are you?
Good.
Mayor, council, city staff, Brent Carter with CAL FIRE. I'll be presenting the stats tonight. I did happen to be on duty, Councilman Smith, for that incident off of Greenwald.
Yeah.
We received a still alarm at the station, so that's when basically someone comes to the station, notifies us. We notified our dispatch and responded to the incident. And then en route is when they told us, because we got it as a person down on the side of the road. They upgraded and told us it was a TC over the side, cutter rescue, which, you know, involves a bigger response. So, unfortunately, we don't know we have a call unless somebody tells us. So, by them coming to the station notifying us, it gave us a little jump on it, but our dispatch received a call after we had been notified at the station. So, sometimes people think somebody else called, and they don't make that call. So, if there's an incident, call 911. Don't take that chance. And you may be able to give the dispatcher more information that someone else didn't give, and they can type the call appropriately.
That makes more sense. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. So the stats for the fire department responses for the month of September on the back table. I'll start with the overall city response. On page 2, it's broken down. There were a total of 80 responses inside the city, with an average response time of 4.8 minutes. There was an additional page the chief added, which he does, he was tied up on an incident in Paris. Chief Weatherholt was going to be here tonight. That's why I'm here. And basically it's saying that the engine had 11-minute response time to one of those calls because it was, the computer was not tracking them. The next page after that, it's broken down into Battalion 2. Station 94 ran 32 calls in the city. Station 5, which is part of Battalion 13, ran 7 calls. And Station 60, which is part of Battalion 13, ran 41 calls for a total of 80 for the month. A little bit into that, we were just moved October 1st into the Southwest Division. So now Battalion 2, Elsinore 94, 60, and 5, Battalion 13 is going to be in the Southwest Division. So we'll all be under one new division chief, will be Lonnie Olson. So I'm sure they'll be sending you his contact information. Also within the last month, we have a new battalion chief for Battalion 13, which is Chief Bill Law. And he's had previous assignments in the battalion, so he's very familiar with the city of Menifee and of... What's that? Hello. So moving on, Engine 60's responses, is that better? If you go to the second page, 60's average response time was 5.4 minutes. They had a total of 109 incidents, and that's because they go to Elsinore and Paris and Menifee for incidents responses. And with that, were there any questions?
Yes, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Hi, Brent.
Hi, how are you, sir?
Captain Carter, excuse me.
Brent's
Captain
fine.
Carter. Your timestamp on your time out of station, is that done electronically? Or
Yes,
voice?
so we have the mobile data computers.
Okay.
The 911 system, the point of contact is the sheriff's department. So they receive the call, determine if it's medical, fire, needs a PD response or both, and then they transfer it to fire. And then they dispatch us. When we get dispatched, we have turnout times that we're required to meet. And then we have a mobile data computer that we hit en route on, and that most of the time it works. Sometimes, computers, they
Sure.
have little glitches, but so we will go en route on scene. When we clear the call, we have to put in a certain amount of info for the call.
So
to clear it.
what's your current turnout time?
It varies. It depends on the type of incident, and then also the time of day. If it's during the day, it's probably 40 seconds to a minute that you're out at the engine. If it's a structure fire call, then you have to turn out into your structure gear. it's a wildland call, you know, you have your, so we went to these pants now, so we just have to put on our brush jackets and our wildland boots, versus where we used to have another outer layer of pants too, that we would wear. So, depends on the incident, and then, and like I said, the time of day too, if you're going from a dead sleep to, 100 miles an hour, you're well aware of how that works.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from council?
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Okay, moving on to code enforcement, Senior Code Officer Ruby Manzano. Hi.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. I will be providing you with the activity report for the month of September. We had 2 MPDS violations, which citations were issued for both. We are seeing an increase in illegal dumping here in the town center. 3 citations were issued for that. 8 citations were issued out on BLM. No changes there on the activity. And we still have 2 short-term rentals not in compliance that we're currently working, trying to bring them into compliance. For residential rental registrations, we've conducted a total of 15 inspections for the month of September, which brings us to a total of 75. And 16 fire inspections have been conducted.
I've heard from some of the business owners in the town center that the dumping is really being a problem, and they don't want to end up having to be contributing to that by putting their trash outside because the trash cans are full of other people's stuff. So how are we enforcing that other than?
It's a little difficult. There are cameras out there, but we're not seeing, or the owners of these businesses, they're not seeing vehicles, so we can't get a license plate that way. It seems like they're parking somewhere else and just walking and dumping there. The only way we're able to enforce is by going literally through some of the trash that's being left outside and looking for packages or mail that we can go back and cite, and that's how we're doing it right now.
Okay. Anyone else have
I got a
questions?
question in regards to the short-term rental properties. You got 2 of them right now that you're trying to get in compliant.
Yes.
What are we trying to do to get them in compliance since they're illegally doing business?
So what we did is we found them on VRBO.
Uh-huh.
Notice of violation was issued. 14 days later, citation, and then a week later, another citation. So that's where we're at with that one. Every week we begin citing. It seems like when they get to the 3rd one, which is a $500 one, that's when they come in.
Okay.
But we're also trying to monitor them by driving to these properties, especially over the weekends. We have our officers out there Sunday and Saturday, trying to see if they see any activity, any vehicles, any people, and
Yeah, I'm getting calls pretty regularly on the 2 properties, and it's always Friday night is when the change happens. And it's the same couple houses that, have been
Yeah.
your guys' problem for the
Yes.
last 6 months.
Yes.
So I just wanted to see, what course of action that we're taking, just because the neighbors are starting to get really fed up and
Yeah.
there's loud parties and whatnot, so we
Yeah.
just want to make sure
We're getting those emails too. The problem is, we don't work late at night, and
Right.
it seems like this is when this is happening.
It is.
And I told the neighbors to go ahead and call, if there's noise or anything like that, go ahead and call the police department or the sheriff's department, and then maybe we can kind of coordinate and work something with that. But they're difficult to catch.
Mr. City Attorney, if I may, just, I know our ordinance reads that there's a fine in place, and then also it's a misdemeanor. At what course does that come into play? Because if we're on number 4 or 5, giving them verbals, written notices, everything else, is our ordinance not?
So, when exactly to move up the escalation is usually a matter of discretion for the code officer. I know that I do have regular meetings with code going over their cases, when to escalate it. I can also tell you that we've been working with the city manager on a sort of overall code enforcement ordinance. One of the items that's in that actually addresses what you're talking about. It relates to infractions. And so when the city council so the default is any violation of the code is a misdemeanor.
Correct.
But the city council can authorize the filing of them as infractions. The language that we're currently looking at right now is, do we want to put a certain number of infractions before my office would have to file it as a misdemeanor? So that's a conversation that we're going to be having in an attempt to update the entire code enforcement scheme rather than going ordinance by ordinance. And I expect to see that in the next month or two.
Yeah, just my fear is that if you're legitimately on the fourth or fifth attempt, it's just a game at this point, right? And they're obviously not taking what you're trying to enforce seriously. And I know that this council, when we took that ordinance up, I mean, none of us here want to hand out misdemeanors. That was never the intent. But at least if we had some nuts and bolts to the ordinance, people would take it seriously, and this is not happening.
Yeah.
So I don't know about my colleagues, but I'm getting sick of the complaints for the same thing because it happens every single week, and it's the same 10 people that call me at 9 o'clock at night. But, you know, as long as I can report back and we're doing something. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see if we make that adjustment or not. So, thank you.
Anyone else?
Quick question for staff. Do we have any flexibility in scheduling of code enforcement to get them out there? Apparently Friday night's somewhat of a trigger. Do we have the ability to flex some time and get some patrols out or have code enforcement out in those evenings?
Yes, we can. We have pretty limited resources there, and we have just recently, in the past maybe 2 months or so, 2 or 3 months, shifted our schedule so that we have coverage every weekend, including Sundays. So yeah, especially as we've seen increased activity out on the BLM land on the weekends, that was an important step. Probably not a good idea for a permanent shift schedule, but if we wanted to do, pick a couple of Fridays and, kind of shift.
No, I agree. I think a permanent one is probably not effective, but the occasional, of course, seasonal, we see the summer, spring season get pretty hectic where Christmas season is probably not such a big deal.
Right. Yeah. And I'd just like to point out too, we're down to these two, which are particularly trouble to stamp out, but tremendous progress from where we started.
We had 19, so we went 19 to 2. I agree with Councilman Welty. Check-ins at 7 p.m. on Friday. I know this very well. And checkout is around 6 o'clock on Sunday, so just throwing that out there for code.
Did you enjoy your stay?
It was great.
Okay, anyone else? All right, thank you. Okay, moving on to public comment section. City Clerk, can you please read the statement?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Any person wishing to address the City Council on any matter within the jurisdiction of the city, whether or not it appears on this agenda, is asked to complete a speaker request form available on the back counter. The completed form is to be submitted to the City Clerk prior to an individual being heard by the City Council. The City Council has adopted a time limitation of 3 minutes per person. If you're commenting on the agenda item, your comments will be heard at the time that particular item is scheduled on the agenda. Please note that if you're addressing the City Council on items not on the agenda, the Brown Act does not allow discussions of such items. Therefore, the City Council may only do the following: refer the matter to staff, ask for additional information or request a report back, or give a very limited factual response. Members of the public may still submit their comment electronically by sending an email with their comment to publiccomment@canyonlakeca.gov. Comments submitted electronically will be provided to the City Council and included in the official record, but will not be read aloud during the meeting. I have one card.
Okay.
Jack Walmsley?
Thank you very much, board members. Last night, I brought up an issue to the POA board, and I bring the same issue up to the council, and that's safety. At the present time, we have a lot of electrical bicycles running around with kids and grown-ups, and they're not wearing helmets. And it struck me, we've got to save these kids from getting into trouble, and especially the parents. And the other day, I saw a mother and a father going down the road, 2 kids, all of them had electric bikes. One young kid had a helmet. Originally, we had a law here that everybody, if you rode a bicycle, you wore a helmet. Why we dropped part of that to the point where any person younger than 18 wore the helmet. At the present time, the state has a law with reference to electric motors are not high enough and strong enough to fall into the motorcycle issue, which if you're running a motorcycle, you have to have a helmet on. That doesn't make any difference. I mean, you as council members and so on can say, hey, look, in our city, you wear a helmet. And I guess it hits me because the first 10 years in my service in the fire service, I worked the rescue. And I remember one day, there was a man on a motorcycle waiting for the light to change. He got hit in the back with a car. It drove him across the intersection, his head into the curb. When we arrived, he was dead. But the thing that got to me is I looked over at the motorcycle and his helmet was strapped to the handlebars. And I've always remembered that. And I thought that guy would be alive today if he just had a little more sense. So anyway, I'm asking that you consider, especially for our young kids, these electric bikes, and we're going to have more of them. We got a lot of them out there right now. And they'll run 25, 30 miles an hour. I think we need to put in a law, hey, if you want to ride an electric bike, have a helmet. We don't want to be picking you up out of the street. That's all I had for it.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions on it, though?
Okay. Thank you very much. All right. So that being the only public comment, we'll move on to the consent calendar. Can you please read the statement?
All items listed on the consent calendar are considered to be routine matters, status reports, or documents covering previous city council action. The items listed on the consent calendar may be enacted in one motion. With the concurrence of the city council, a council member may request that an item be removed for further discussion. Staff recommends approval of all items.
Okay, is there any council member who would like a consent calendar item pulled? Hearing none, I need a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar. Yes?
Madam Mayor, on item 8, our second reading on our cannabis, commercial cannabis, I would like the city attorney, I had a question on the 60-day, 90-day, 30-day comment, what the law says, so that we have some confusion on that. So could you, on that, I have no problem with us voting for the entire consent calendar, but just clarification on that.
Sure. The question, as I understood it, was why is there not 30 days in between the first reading and the second reading? The government code requires 5 days between first reading and second reading of ordinances from cities. And then 30 days after the second reading is when the ordinance goes into effect. So I think, simply because this city generally has meetings once a month, it's maybe where people got confused. Most cities do their ordinances first reading, one meeting, second reading, the next meeting, and usually those are 2 weeks apart, like we have in this case.
Thank you.
Okay, so motion and a second to approve the consent calendar.
Moved. Second.
Roll call vote.
Councilmember Dane?
Aye.
Councilmember Green?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith?
Aye.
Councilmember Welty?
Aye.
Mayor Castillo?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Let's go on to public hearing.
Yes, Madam Mayor, our city planner, Jim Morrissey, couldn't be with us this evening, so I'm going to ask our city attorney to make the presentation on this item.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, can we open the public hearing, please, and announce the time?
That's right. It is 7:09.
All right, thank you, Mayor. So this one's relatively straightforward, as the council is aware. At a previous council meeting, city staff brought the item of window signage in the city's commercial zones, most commonly in the town center, to the attention of the city council, and indicated that, several businesses appeared to be not in compliance with the city's 25% restriction on window signage. After discussions, the city council's direction was to institute a business-friendly approach that businesses we should remove the restriction on the total area allowed for window signage. So Jim Morrissey of the city's planning department prepared the amendment. I worked with him and reviewed it as to legal form. It's essentially, when we're looking at section 9.25.030 of the existing municipal code on zoning, there is a 25% restriction. That language has been struck and replaced with language that says no restriction on the amount of window area covered. So this will be the first reading if it is introduced and approved for first reading tonight. Your second reading will be at your regular meeting in November, and it will go into effect 30 days after that, at which point the windows you see in the photographs will be in compliance with our zoning code, and any other business owner that desires to advertise their businesses will be free to use the entire window area.
Okay.
That is all.
Any questions to staff by council? Hearing none, any testimony by proponents? Any testimony by opponents? Okay, we're going to close the public hearing at 7:11. Any discussion? Things, yes?
I guess my only comment is I hope that the members of the commercial community in the center use some taste, judgment in their signage. We want to encourage business. We want to get the commerce in the center to be able to market their stores, but please try to stay within the bounds of reasonableness when you put your sign up.
Yeah, that's well said. Okay, I need a motion and a second to approve the introduction and first reading of ordinance 216.
Motion.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Councilmember Dane?
Aye.
Councilmember Green?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith?
Aye.
Councilmember Welty?
Aye.
Mayor Castillo?
Aye.
Motion carried to approve the introduction and first reading of ordinance number 216, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Canyon Lake, California, approving an amendment to the Canyon Lake Municipal Code, Title IX, Planning and Zoning, Section 9.25.030 A and B, related to eliminating window signage area requirements.
Okay. Looks like number 10 on our business items, or public hearing, sorry, second reading of ordinance 213.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. This is the second reading of adopting our fire code. I have to ask Interim Fire Chief Jeff Latendresse to make this presentation.
Okay, first let me announce the time at 7:12. Hi, Chief.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council, staff, Jeff Latendresse, your interim fire chief. Again, pretty much like the previous item, second hearing for the adoption of the fire code. The fire code needs to be adopted typically every 3 years, but with the formation of the city's new fire department, we needed to go through and do some updates on it. We presented those updates at the council meeting on September 1st, so this is our second hearing on this. And for the most part, the adoption of the fire code remains relatively the same as it was previously. We did make some minor recommendations for changes to that. Some of them dealt with access gates, so that while if you had a gate to your residential property, not a gate into the community, you didn't necessarily need to have an electronic override. You just needed to have a key switch or something like that that we could get out to try to make it more affordable for the property owners. Another change that we did is if you do a significant remodel of more than 50% of your home over 5,000 square feet, that would constitute almost like building a new building, and the fire department would then require that you put residential sprinkler systems in there. If you built a home today, the code all requires that you have residential sprinkler systems. So those are really the major significant changes. It's staff recommendation that you go ahead and approve this second hearing and then move forward with the ordinance. And
Thank you.
I'm available for questions.
Excellent. Does anyone have any? No. Okay. Any testimony by proponents or opponents? Okay, we are going to close the public hearing at 7:14. Any discussion? Sounds like we like the fire code. I guess we'll look for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote. Thank you, Chief.
Councilmember Dane?
Aye.
Councilmember Green?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith?
Aye.
Councilmember Welty?
Aye.
Mayor Castillo?
Aye.
Motion carried to approve the second reading of ordinance number 213, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Canyon Lake, California, readopting the 2019 California Fire Code, amending Chapter 8.12 of the Canyon Lake Municipal Code.
Thank you. On to the urgency item.
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you. At the September 13th special meeting, the council approved the awarding of a bid for the roof rehabilitation project to Aerethane Foam Products, Inc. in the amount of $84,000 plus a contingency. That contract was sent over to Aerethane about 3 weeks ago. Aerethane has since said that they are unwilling to sign the contract and honor the price that they listed in their bid. We expect to have that in writing from them by tomorrow morning. Assuming that that comes in as expected in writing, the resolution before you this evening would allow me to award the contract to the second lowest bidder, which is Bennick Roofing Construction, for a bid amount of $94,480 with contingency. And we anticipate that's the direction that this will likely go. So just wanted to get, it became an urgency item because we became aware of this yesterday after the agenda was posted, which is why it's on the agenda as an urgency item this evening. But with that, we have the ordinance in front of you and just asking approval.
So are they not honoring the bid because of COVID or container ships or what?
So according to them, one of the materials that are included in the bid, the cost of that product increased from the time they submitted the bid and until now. And they are unwilling to, in their words, take the hit, to take a loss on it. Staff did reach out to the second lowest bidder and received verification from that company that they would honor the amount that they bid. And so I mean it's highly unusual. It's when a company bids, they are really required to honor that bid amount, and this company is not. So that brings up some bigger trust issues with that company as well.
Okay.
Is there a penalty phase for them not honoring a bid after it's been awarded to them?
Well, I'm glad you asked. So a bid on a public works contract isn't just saying like, oh, I'll do it.
That's right.
It's you're entering into a contract with the city to do it at that price. The code requires that they submit what's called a bid bond. So it's 10% of their bid price as security for following through on their obligation to go with the bid. So even though the difference is about, I think, $10,000 here, one of the things that's in the resolution, and it's in state law, is it authorizes the city manager to forfeit their bid bond. That amount of money will be credited to the increased cost of going with the second bidder.
Okay, because
Very unusual, I have to say, very unusual for a public works contractor to do this. I've had it only happen one time in my entire career, and that was a legitimate mistake that was made in the addition for the bid. They could show that, and the code has provisions for when you make a mistake. The code does not have provisions for you didn't get a firm price quote on materials you were going to use on a job. And so, in the 3 weeks between when we opened it and when we sent you the contract, you're, suddenly not willing to do it.
So that, to be clear, Mr. City Attorney, that, so that fee that the contractor is then going to have to pay, is that correct?
It's not something, it's not a fee that they have to pay. It's basically, they said, I'm going to do this job for, say, $100,000.
Right.
And when they do that, they give us $10,000. They give that to the city to secure their performance.
It's a bond.
Normally.
It's a bond.
Yeah, it's a bond.
So they're going
Normally
to
it
lose
goes
that
back.
bond, is that correct?
They are going to lose that bond.
Even though the amount of money, this is why it's confusing.
Oh, it's
Not confusing,
for
but just doesn't make any
reasons. I
sense.
understand.
Idiotic, if I could use that word. That a contractor, knowing that they're going to lose this particular project and knowing that there's a bond out there, we'll call it $10,000, and it's oddly enough that the project's going to be an increase of $7,000. So not only are they not going to get the job, but then they're going to lose the $10,000, and we're going to go with someone else. So now they're not getting the work at all.
So the reason why it's incredibly unusual is oftentimes, one of the limitations on a contractor's ability to do business is their bonding capacity. And when you start forfeiting bonds, that starts becoming more expensive for you as an organization. Additionally, you may have to report that on future bids that you submit to government agencies. You have to say, I was the low bidder and I decided I wasn't going to do the project. They might find that you're not responsible. So it may impact your ability to get future work. So it is very unusual, but, the code has provisions for this, and, the city is not going to be out too much money because of it. And so we're just going to go with the second lowest bidder.
Sounds good.
All right. Any further discussion? Any public comment cards? All right. Motion and a second to adopt resolution
So moved. Second.
2021-60. Roll call vote.
Councilmember Dane?
Aye.
Councilmember Green?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith?
Aye.
Councilmember Walty?
Aye.
Mayor Castillo?
Aye.
Motion carried to adopt resolution number 2021-60.
Moving on to business item number 11.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I think I'd like to ask our Finance Director, Terry Shea, to make the presentation on this item, and actually, the next 5 items.
Okay.
Big night for Terry.
Hello, Terry Shea.
Good evening, everybody. And it was a lot of fun playing with Larry and Anna's husband. And Anna's husband has the luckiest golf ball I've ever seen. He hit it in the trees in the woods 7 times, and I found it all 7 times for him. Your Honorable Mayor, Member City Council, what you have before you is an agreement with CPS HR Consulting. With the fire department starting soon and doubling our employees, and we have 1 employee who's part-time accountant, part-time HR, we thought it was important to bring in some professional help. And so the city manager reached out to, I think, ICMA or somebody and got us some references. So we called all 6 of these people. We received proposals, and then we met as a team and discussed each proposal. And we really like CPS HR because it is a government. They're a JPA. They have a lot of government clients in California. 2 of their references were Riverside County governments, and I called all their references, and they gave them very high marks. I think is the lady on the line, Anna?
Yes, I believe so.
So, and what it is they offer a lot of services, and they can help us with our plans, our recruitment, selection, classification, compensation, benefits administration, safety, payroll, employee health, and they have all these things that they can offer. And their hourly rates were below all the other hourly rates. And so, the project manager is 135, the principal consultant 130. We're not sure how many hours this first year we're going to use, but I think we estimated about 15,000 in that startup period between November and June. And so
$15,000, not 15,000 hours.
$15,000, yeah. That'd be a lot of hours. So. I'd go into HR if it was that. So, so if you have any questions, I think her name is Shelley and Melissa are on the line if you want to hear from them or if you have any questions.
Any questions from council?
I do.
Yes.
Terry, on the estimated amount of, where did that come from?
There's going to be a lot of help with the fire department getting started and helping onboard all the fire department employees and sitting down with them one-on-one. And so it was just kind of an estimate based on that and helping update. The chief is working on a new personnel rules and regulations for the fire department, and so to help with that. So we kind of just estimated some hours. And I kind of estimated on the high side. So.
Okay. Because I thought it was a little low.
A little low?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we have contingencies in place to monitor how much time we're actually using?
Yeah, they will bill us, and we can keep track of that. And if we have to come back and more, we could do that at mid-year, which we do in February. So.
This is David McPherson.
Okay, welcome, David.
I think David is on a different call, so.
Oh.
He's a different one.
So,
he's the cannabis guy.
Terry, maybe this is for
Sure.
the CPS person. Are they on site or are they going to be remote?
They can do both. I think they have someone who lives in Murrieta on their staff.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So this will be a scheduled
Yeah.
process?
Be on site probably for all the fire department onboarding, but it can be
Okay.
both. And during the year, we have a lot of times when calls and when Kayla will reach out and so there's a big need. So it'd probably be about 50% remote, 50% on-site.
Will they also have responsibility for our other employees for HR needs?
For the whole city, yes, everybody.
Okay, that's what I didn't think we were just singling out.
No, we wouldn't single the fire department out, so. But, because I think we were going from, 7 or 8 to 25, 30 employees, so, and poor Kayla, we wanted to keep Kayla, so we thought we'd get a HR company, so.
Okay.
All right,
Any other questions or comments?
No.
No? Any public comment cards? Okay, so we'll need a motion and a second to
Motion.
adopt. Roll call?
Councilmember Dane?
Aye.
Councilmember Green?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith?
Aye.
Councilmember Welty?
Aye.
Mayor Castillo?
Aye.
Motion carried to adopt resolution number 2021-50.
Thank you so much. Excited to have you on the team. Looking for business item 12.
Me again. Your Honorable Mayor, City Council. With the addition of the fire department and the new staff, we thought we need a new upgraded payroll system. So we reached out to 4 payroll firms and got quotes. This will bring us up to date, and we'll have electronic timesheets. People can sign in, can be approved electronically. So we're going from the manual time cards to an automated process, and hopefully they'll be able to enter it from their phones, and will be updated. So the pricing is on the second page of the staff report. We currently use CBiz, and we like the way it works. We have all the right codes in there, so we like for the PERS payments and all the deferred comp. And so that's what we would recommend is they're not the low bidder, but they're the second low one. And it's CBiz, and that's the one we currently use, so.
Okay.
Any questions from council?
Madam Mayor, if I may, this deserves at least a couple sentences, at least to our colleagues. Before, our current employers are writing things down on a piece of paper, employees, and submitting them. So now, we finally are going to be putting our staff in the 21st century, and I'm so sorry it has taken this long to do it. And I apologize that I'm now finding this out in budget and finance, but thank you for bringing this forward, so we won't have a new fire department who has to handwritten timesheets and drive our, HR department nuts with that. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Terry, can I ask you a question? I know this is focused around payroll and all the coding and everything goes with it. Is there a piece of this that's also used for staffing?
I'd have to find that out from Kayla. She did most of the research.
Especially for fire working, nope?
Yeah, we could find that out.
Are you going to use electronic staffing program, Chief?
I would like to at some point,
Okay,
but it's not a part.
okay.
Sorry, Council. I would like to at some point, but it's not part of the initial budget.
Especially when you're scheduling a month out.
Correct. We will have programs that will track it, but it won't make the automated phone calls or anything like that.
Okay, no, I'm not muddying the water, I just thought maybe this could be a piece of it. Trying to help you.
Thank you.
And we do currently have, some money budgeted, so it's only an additional, $2,700 between now and the end of the year, so.
Okay, so this money is already in the budget?
Yeah, we need an additional $2,700, but yeah, the full amount is, part of it's covered because we already use CBiz and it's already in the budget. So.
Okay.
Which is an amendment. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none. Any public comment cards? Motion and a second, please.
Motion?
Roll call vote.
Councilmember Dane?
Aye.
Councilmember Green?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith?
Aye.
Councilmember Welty?
Aye.
Mayor Castillo?
Aye.
Motion carried to adopt resolution number 2021-51.
All right, moving on to item 13.
Me again. So, and if Mike wants to help, he can feel free to come up. So what we have in front of you is we're already a member of PERMA for our liability and all our other insurance needs. And so with the addition, again, of the fire department and doubling our employees, we reached out to State Comp Fund, who we currently use, and their prices were a little high and they're kind of hard to work with. And so then we reached out to PERMA and got their quote. What you have before you is a resolution to become self-insured, and then another resolution to cover our volunteers, which is important. And then we have the resolution number 4 there, but we have that policy, but we've never adopted this resolution, so PERMA asked us to adopt this resolution. And then any questions on this? Because what we're going to is basically self-insured for workers' compensation. The city has not had a claim in workers' compensation in, I want to say, 14 years, 15 years. So
Yeah.
that'll help with our rating with the.
But I'm thinking with the addition of additional personnel and the nature of the service, claims could be on the increase. And since we're self-insured, have we set a cap?
I think it's 250, right? Is it 500 or 250? I think it's in the resolution.
Okay, I mean, I'm
Yeah.
just asking. Okay.
So our pool loss funding will be 150,000 to 500,000 would be $10,000. Excess insurance is 10,000. That's over and above in case we go above that liability. Administrative expenses, and then the TPA expense 4,000. That's the third-party administrator, and then we're going to
Right.
use admin insure.
What is the difference between state comp and PERMA?
State comp is basically an insurance company that we're buying workers' compensation through.
Right, and how
PERMA
how
is-
much was the difference?
The difference was, so the total for the year, well, for a full year, it was 75,000 for state comp, and on this one, it was 14,000 for the premium, but we're building up our reserve, and that's part of that $64,000 is we're going to build up a reserve there, reserve balance at PERMA.
Okay.
So-
What happens if we exhaust our amount?
Then you pay more.
Okay. I kind of knew that answer, but, all right.
But the excess insurance, you know, in case you have that catastrophic loss comes in, and there was 2 fire departments in LA County cities that rolled to the same call. The fire trucks hit, went into a store and killed people. And so it almost bankrupted the insurance companies. So, I mean, but yeah, so.
Okay, we're not going to do that?
No.
Okay, that's good. Okay. So do we make a motion to adopt all of these resolutions, or are they adopted one at a time?
That would be a question for city attorney.
I will accept a motion on all of them at the same time, but we need to ask about public comment first.
Okay, sorry.
It's okay.
I'm jumping. Go ahead.
Is there any other questions from staff?
Oh, yeah, I just have a good, so we have a secondary insurance on top of this, is that what you're saying, some sort of catastrophe?
Yeah, yeah.
And what level is that hit at?
I think it hits at 500,000.
So we would be at risk for 500,000. Is there any way to get that reduced, or?
Maybe, I think are we 250, Chris? Is that what
I thought it was 150, but I'll have to.
Yeah, I don't think it's quite that much, but yeah, we could, but it's going to cost a lot more.
Yeah.
So that's why you go self-insured.
Yep.
So you are doing a risk?
I think we're 250. Yeah.
250?
Oh, hey, Beth, thank you for coming.
Beth Lyons with PERMA is on the phone. Go ahead, Beth.
Hi.
Hi.
The city's exposure would be $150,000 for a claim, and then you do have coverage through statutory limits. In other words, whatever the law says you have to pay on a workers' compensation claim, you do have coverage all the way through that amount. So if you have a $5 million cancer claim, for example, the city will pay $150,000 of that, and then the pools and the excess carriers sitting above your retention will pay that remainder. So whatever the law says you have to pay in a claim, you have coverage for that full amount.
Thank you for that, that was extremely helpful.
Any other questions from council? Is there any public comment on this item?
Do we have public comment on this one?
Mr. Walmsley, your comment is for this, is it for this item? Is it for this item, your comment? Okay, yes, we do have one comment.
Okay, for workers' comp?
One question, I don't know what you probably searched in, but what about the JPA with reference to working with the other, Wildemar, maybe some of the other kinds, see what their insurance is and see if maybe we can join in with them and get a little better price. That's the thought there. I don't know whether you've done that or not, but that is available usually with the JPA. I know Larry has talked with him about that. I think that's probably the direction I would hope that we would go in the future. But maybe we can join in with the insurance right now.
Madam Mayor, just to answer the question that was brought up. PERMA, which we have been a member of for all of our insurance needs, and now we're moving towards PERMA for workers' comp, is a joint powers authority that the city is a member of. In fact, I now sit on the executive board of PERMA. So very, very competitive. It's a tough insurance market right now.
Right.
No matter which group you belong to, it's a tough market right now.
Thank you for sitting on the board.
Any other public comment?
No
Okay.
other comments.
All right. So I would need a motion and a second to adopt resolutions 20-21, 52, 53, 54, and 55.
So moved.
I'm out of seconds. There we go.
Roll call vote.
Councilmember Dane?
Aye.
Councilmember Green?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith?
Aye.
Councilmember Walty?
Aye.
Mayor Castillo?
Aye.
Motion carried to adopt resolutions number 2021-52, 53, 54, and 55.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Beth, thank you for joining us.
Appreciate it. Item 14. Item 14.
Good evening again. The city currently provides an employer-sponsored deferred compensation plan for all our part-time and not full-time workers, as well as full-time workers. The plan provides tax benefits to employees who make deposits into the plan for their retirement. There comes with certain fiduciary responsibilities, and so the city was approached by Schuster Advisory Group to help us administer those plans. And they have the ability, they're also a registered SEC investor, they have the ability to negotiate with the various investment companies and keep the fees down. And so they've offered to, and we would request them to administer this 457 plan for the city. I think Mr. Schuster is on the line, is he?
I believe so.
That's correct, I'm here.
And so if you have any questions as to the services they provide, feel free to ask Mr. Schuster.
Council have any questions?
Yes, Mr. Schuster. Councilman Green here. Do you, is it a base fee that you have established for the management of our deferred comp, or is it per individual?
No, it's a base fee for the entire plan. We will serve as the fiduciary to the plan. We are not the fiduciaries to the individuals of the plan. And so our fee is a flat fee.
Okay. And that fee is paid by the city, or is it paid by the employee?
We have recommended, due to the small balances in the plan at this time, that the city pay this fee, but inevitably that the plan or the participants pay the fee. For the protection and for the enhancement of the plan, we recommend that the fees remain at approximately 1% for right now. Those are the internal fees that are charged by the record keeper. Currently, you have Nationwide as a record keeper, even though we're going to explore other options with Mission Square, formerly known as ICMARC, Voya, and the other record keepers in the industry. So for the time being, we're going to have the city pay for it, but inevitably, we see that shifting over to the employees and or the plan paying for it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? And so that is a $750 fee per quarter?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Any public comment on this?
No comments.
Okay. Hearing no other discussion, a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Councilmember Dane?
Aye.
Councilmember Green.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Welty.
Aye.
Mayor Castillo.
Aye.
Motion carried to adopt resolution number 2021-56.
Thank you. Item number 15.
Me again. So we've been discussing with the Finance and Planning Committee going to a cashback credit card and getting off of CalCards. So Kayla has done some research, and we basically got proposals from our current bank, sorry, Stephen, and I forget the name of the bank, California Bank and Trust. And the California Bank and Trust offered a better program with a cashback instead of a rewards. It kind of, if you read the staff report, what they will do for you. We will come back to the city with a full credit card policy. We're recommending the city manager, the administrative services manager, the city clerk, the fire chief, and the accountant and human resource specialist. And the reason hers is so high is because we're going to try to pay some of the higher bills. Staff did reach out to all our vendors and see who would take credit cards, who wouldn't. And so we have that list, and some will set up automatic payments, and some we have to call. So we're going to not try to burden Kayla too much, but we're going to see how much cash we could get back on these credit cards. Because right now with CalCards, we're not getting anything back at all.
Right.
So we're just basically switching from CalCards to a bank card. And CalCard is, if you read the first part, is through the state of California. So.
I just know that Mayor Pro Tem Smith has really been advocating for this in the Finance Committee, and so thank you for getting us money back by being incessant on this item. Any questions? Thank you to Kayla for hard work and probably additional work as a result of this. Any public comment card?
No comments.
Need a motion and a second.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Councilmember Dane.
Aye.
Councilmember Green.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Welty.
Aye.
Mayor Castillo.
Aye.
Motion carried to approve item number 15.
Thank you so much.
I know you're probably all Dodger fans, but go Cardinals. So.
All right.
Get out.
Discussion and possible action item on American Rescue Plan Act funding.
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you. This is an exciting and fun item.
An exciting
So,
and fun item.
It is, yes. The
Thank
American
you.
Rescue Plan Act was enacted by Congress, and I'm sure you've all heard that a lot of cities are getting an awful lot of money from this program. City of Canyon Lake is getting somewhere around $2.7 million. We received the first half of it this year. We'll receive the next half of it next year. The funding has to be, how you're going to use the funding has to be designed and designated by 2024, and the funds have to be spent by 2026. Any money that's not spent has to be given back. And so we contracted with HDL to help us put together a plan for how best to utilize this funding. And we have with us Barry Foster, who's the managing director of HDL, and I'd like to turn it over to Barry to make the presentation.
Welcome.
Thanks, Chris. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. I'm going to quickly kind of go through a PowerPoint that will just kind of set the stage a little bit for what we're going to talk about. So ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act, is a $1.9 trillion stimulus package that was adopted by the feds in March of this year. And so of that, it has $350 million in stimulus funds that go into governments. $130 billion is for local governments. So every city and town in the United States gets an allocation, funding allocation from ARPA. In Canyon Lake, and for small cities of under 50,000, you actually get your money from the feds through the state. And so Canyon Lake has their first allocation, or the total amount that you're going to get. I'm going to go back here. So again, it's kind of talking about what it can be used for. So broadly, it's looking at responding to the COVID-19 pandemic and the public health emergency. There's a formula in there, a methodology in measuring lost revenue for local governments, for cities. And then it's addressing the negative impacts on local businesses and nonprofits. And then there's, it's a fairly narrow focus in terms of infrastructure that ARPA is covering, but it's water, sewer, so it'd be stormwater, sanitary sewer, and then broadband infrastructure. So again, the small cities under 50,000 in California get their money through the Department of Finance in California. The allocation for Canyon Lake, the total allocation is almost $2.7 million, and you received your first allocation of almost $1.35 million, and then you'll get the next one next July. As the city manager talked about, you've got to allocate your monies by the end of 2024, and then you have until the end of 2026 to go ahead and spend the money. And if there's anything left, you need to send it back. And so we're advocating to all our clients that you're not giving it back, you find ways to go ahead and spend this. So after we actually did this, we had 12, and we picked up 2 more clients this week. So we have a total of 14 clients that we're working with ARPA on. So we added San Fernando and Claremont this week. The first step you really need to do is look at that revenue loss calculation I talked about, and so we worked with Terry, and there's a very specific way, that methodology that you go ahead and you do that. So basically, they're looking at the last fiscal year before the pandemic, before that hit. So what your revenue was for that. Then they're looking at the 3 years before that, looking at establishing an average growth rate. So you can, and ARPA allows you to use either 4.1, or if it's higher, you can go ahead and use that. So once you figure that out, then you're allowed to go ahead and look at what revenue loss you had for calendar year 2020. And so we have all those numbers in. Terry's gone ahead and calculated that. And so fairly minimal revenue loss. We've had, a lot of cities that have produced a lot. We have one city that didn't have any revenue loss. They just had a lot of activity. They're building a lot of homes. They're up in the Bay Area, and so it didn't have any. So they have $10 million that they've got to spend on programs and projects, and so, but they're still leaving a fairly substantial amount for Canyon Lake to go ahead and have to spend after you do that revenue loss. So the revenue loss, the good thing about that is you can move that to the general fund, and you use that for any general government services. And so it doesn't have to be anything related to ARPA. You can use it for public safety. You can use it for whatever. You can't use it for your reserve. You can't use it for pension cost, and you can't use it for any debt service. But other than that, you can use it for any general government services. So we advocate that you move that and into your general fund and go ahead and use that whatever way you feel is appropriate.
Does it require a separate accounting? Does it require separate accounting?
No. You can move it in and it's move into your general fund.
Okay.
And so again, the federal government is not known for making things easy, but that's one of the easy things that they did. And so you can again use it for any general government services. What that does is that you don't have to report to ARPA on how you spent that money. It relieves a little bit of that burden in terms of compliance reporting. And then looking at, these are just some thoughts and ideas that we've came up with, having worked in other cities, talking a little bit to your city manager and to Terry about what might work here in terms of spending the rest of that money. I think we want to at least kind of figure out what to do with that first tranche, that first little over $1 million. And so some of the things that we came up with was to do a small business relief grant program. You've got a couple of shopping centers, or to go ahead and really look at ways that you might help some of those businesses recover and kind of make sure they're moving forward. As part of that, as part of the staff report, we've also included a business needs survey. We've done that in every one of our cities that we've done work with. I think it's fairly simple. I think it's 14 or 15 questions. Some are yes and no. We want to hear from your businesses on how they've been damaged, how they've been impacted, and how you might be able to help them. Talk about have they received any kind of financial assistance from the federal government or the state or whatever else, and just really trying to kind of hone in how they've been damaged. Have they had trouble with payroll? Have they had problems with vendors and whatever else? And so looking at maybe helping with that some small business grants. We've done a lot of those all over the state. And so I think we can help go ahead and structure that kind of thing. But I think that business needs survey, we'd like to get your direction tonight to go ahead and do that. It'll just give us a little bit more ammunition on how they've been impacted and damaged. Another thing that we've got that we're doing this in a couple of cities already, and so is doing a community e-gift card program. So there's a company out there that it's a national company, but they're actually based in California, up in the Silicon Valley in Menlo Park. Menlo Park's one of our clients as a city. It's a company called Yifty. So they've been around for a while now. So they do these e-gift card programs. And so the nice thing about doing these, and you use ARPA for them, is it gives something for your residents, and then it has a rippling effect to help out your businesses. And so the kind of the mechanism is that you can do buy one and then get one free. So let's say it's a $20 gift card. Your residents can buy that gift card. It can only be used for participating businesses in Canyon Lake, and then we would use ARPA funds to match it. So if it's $20, there'd be an additional free one for $20, and you're using the ARPA funds for that. There's also usually a percent that they charge, that UFT charges for that. You can use ARPA funds for that too. So again, you're giving your residents something, but then you have that rippling effect where you're helping your business community too. And so UFT has, they're currently doing it for about 30 or 40 cities in California, so they have a pretty, and they're rolling this out quite quickly in the state right now. So they have an excellent customer service background, so that it's not like the old gift cards. It's all done online. It's an e-gift card. But again, we think that might really kind of help your business community, help your residents, and have more kind of a total positive impact. So that's one thing that, and we're just getting ready to roll one out up in the East Bay area and Lafayette. And so we've done a lot of the homework and talked about how successful they've been in other communities, and we think that might be something that you want to look at doing here. You can do it where you can start with kind of a small nominal program. Maybe it's $100,000 or something like that. And if it works, you can go back and then do another one too. As I mentioned, you can do water, sewer, broadband infrastructure. One of the things in talking to the city manager that we thought might fit the needs here is repositioning your water district's holding treatment pond, which is on Railroad. Moving, and apparently they don't need it, so it's kind of like just taking it offline and the cost to go ahead and do that. But it would then, so the city would, in return for using ARPA dollars to go ahead and do that, the water district would then go ahead and give you the property, and so that it has the ability to maybe help from an economic development standpoint in that property, and maybe use it for a higher and better use. So that I think is another strong possibility. And then another one is your council chambers here. And so you've got the old library upstairs, is to go ahead and relocate that up to the upstairs. And so what it'll allow you to do, in talking to Chris, is make the necessary improvements to make it a lot more COVID-proof. And just, I think you're going to have the ability to improve your technology, to maybe have some ability for some better remote capability for some of your residents to watch council meetings, and rather than use a phone and those kinds of things, where you have the ability to really enhance that.
So I have a question for you. I noticed you said chambers, not chambers, in here it says chambers plural, so obviously we're only talking about one chamber. But if we went ahead and started, blowing up walls and starting to do new construction, is there any chance that this could come back and these funds could not be used for that? Especially if we're looking at a renovation project that, could mount to, $1 million project that's pretty severe, if we have to take that on in the middle of that.
I think, Terry, did you have an estimate that you had kind of put for that?
Well, since you brought that up, what we're looking for from the council tonight is kind of a blessing on conceptually the projects that we're bringing for you. If the council's okay with these being the areas where we spend ARPA funding, then we need to go out and we need to get an idea of what these projects would cost. So for example, for the renovations at City Hall, we would be looking at a build-out of a city council chambers in the former library space. We'd also be looking at improvements to how we serve the public when they walk into City Hall at the various departments. So opening things up and having more of a counter system as opposed to having people in small little confined offices. And so we would need to go out and talk with contractors and eventually go out to bid to get those prices. So what we're looking at here is two large projects, relocation or actually elimination of the EVMWD recycled water ponds.
Yeah.
Construction of a pipeline to their existing recycled water tank, which would probably be, in rough numbers, they've told us it's probably somewhere around $1 million project. I've talked with their general manager. He's going to have his people run some more specific numbers for us, so we're in that process. The improvements at City Hall, no idea. We're probably thinking somewhere in the neighborhood of 1 to 1.5 million for that. And then we would like to do some things like the small business relief grants and the gift card program. The challenge is when you're dealing with $2.7 million, we just don't have that many businesses here in Canyon Lake to spread that money around to. So, I think if we budgeted $100,000 for both those programs, we'd have difficulty getting all that money out and spent. So. But no, we don't have specific numbers on that, but kind of just ballpark, we're thinking 1 to 1.5 on the renovations at City Hall and somewhere in the ballpark of $1 million on the EVMWD pond elimination.
Yeah, that's great, and that's not my issue or concern. My issue or concern is that if we move forward with this, which is fine, I just want to know that we're entering into what we believe we're going to use these funds for. So if, my colleagues and I authorize the approval of these proposed projects and we start doing things, we don't then get a notice saying, oh, that doesn't qualify you to use those particular funds for that project, and now we're hung out to dry on it. That's my big concern.
Yeah, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to document why we think it's appropriate, why they're eligible. They have a list of things that are eligible. There's a lot of things that are kind of, they give you some discretion. So we want to put forward why we think it would be eligible, so we want to document that. U.S. Treasury, which runs and manages the ARPA funds, they don't approve your plan. So you've got to, again, go forward and make sure that you're doing your due diligence and you're making sure that you think it's appropriate. But there's the potential for somewhere down the road, they're going to have audits. Not everybody's going to get an audit. And then determine whether things are eligible or not. And so, but again, I think we're going to try to, go through and make sure that they truly are eligible and document all that. You're also doing, reports. The first report was going to be due the end of October. It's now been pushed to the end of April. So again, those reports will then document why you think they're eligible, whatever projects or programs you're doing.
So essentially, it's carefully rolling the dice, I guess. So to make me feel more comfortable about rolling the dice, are other cities proposing projects just like this as well? So there's other examples out there, especially if the audit program starts to occur, we can look at sister cities or sister counties and say, look, we're just following in suit with what we think is right.
Okay.
That is currently happening?
Yeah.
Okay.
Again, everybody has to make their, they allow you to do programs that are customized to your community. that are eligible.
Right.
And so it's making that documentation, laying that out why you think that it's appropriate, moving it up and improving the COVID environment and everything else. And I personally think, and a lot of other people do too, that COVID's going to be around for a while. I mean, you have the Delta strain, there's going to be other strains, you know, so I think we're looking to try to have to do with some stuff like remote things and having just, you know, spacing and all those kinds of things to protect the public as much as you can, because it's just going to be around for a while. And then that's really the intent of ARPA, is to look at dealing with the pandemic, dealing with the health emergency, and trying to make sure that everything is working together, but then also looking for recovery too.
Thank you for answering my questions.
Just a couple comments here. I think in some ways we could add some software potential tier too, because if people can do their business online and they don't have to come in, I don't know what's more COVID safe than, you know, being a half mile away.
Absolutely.
And so I think maybe we should look at some software upgrades for some portals for, you know, I know we're doing some of it now, but as far as applications for permits or any of the documents can be uploaded by outside businesses that we deal with, that we can avoid having, you know, the documents having to be brought in.
That's the last one that we have on there, and we're doing that with a lot of communities. And so I think,
I see that, all right, thanks.
So I think doing, you know, creating payment portals and whatever else you can do online, certainly is going to qualify.
Any other questions or comments from council? Okay.
So if I can, I'll just kind of go
sure.
through real quick, I'm sorry.
Oh, I didn't
I'll just
know
finish
you
up.
were
So,
done.
so here's kind of the timeline that we're talking about. So we've got the council meeting tonight. We'd like to get your direction to go ahead and do the business needs survey. So it's attached to the staff report. So we'd like to get that out, and then if we, as part of that, if there's the need to do any kind of stakeholder meetings with any businesses one-on-one, we can go ahead and do that, and then get together and drafting that strategy. As the city manager talked about, kind of fleshing out the numbers for this project and for the holding pond project and some of the others, and just kind of coming up with more definitive numbers, and then come back to you in December, and then hopefully get it further direction and on putting together an ARPA strategy.
So you're just looking for some direction from the council, to the kind of a plus, or, you know, have thumbs up, thumbs down, or?
Yeah, I would just like a council vote just by minute order, no resolution, but just by minute order, to say the projects that have been presented to us here, we agree with that and move forward and pursue those.
Any comments or questions from
I
council?
think since it's here, you identified four different projects that have possibilities, and I'm sure there'll be a few more that pop up that would fall into the criteria. So I think we ought to move forward and give authorization for the draft, and then keep making sure we keep abreast of, so we don't end up in an audit situation and we end up owing funds.
Right.
So-
And you know, there's been no indication how many audits that they're going to do and whatever else. You just have to realize that every city and town is going to get an allocation, and so who they pick and choose to do audits, it really hasn't been determined.
Has any city refused their funds?
I'm not aware of any. But
Okay. So-
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm getting a little confused about so we're looking just to give approval to move forward to investigate these items, okay? Because I thought so we have the opportunity to have the public give input on what they would like as well?
Yeah, well, I think there will be several opportunities for public input tonight, certainly one of them, in this agendized meeting. Another opportunity will be when we reach out to the business community with that survey to get a sense of their needs. And then each of these projects will have to be approved separately on their own, you know. So when we get ready to spend money on the renovations at City Hall, well, that's going to have to go to public bid, and it's going to have to come to the council for approval. So each of these projects will require separate council approval in addition.
Yeah, and so the strategy it'll basically put together a budget for those things, and then coming back and then approving each one of them separately is what Chris is talking about.
Thank you.
And I just want to say, great job, city manager and all the work that you guys are doing, because we are limited on the type of projects we can do. So although public input, in my opinion, is going to be very important, we got to be reminded that we can only spend this money on particular items that relate, which is why even this is very creative. So I just want to say thanks again for the staff taking their time on coming up with these particular projects. And I'll also let everyone know that the score is 1-1 right now, top of the 7th, just so you guys know.
Okay. So do we need a vote?
First, we need public comment.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
A few questions. These funds will be audited? It's 100% sure? Might not be by the feds, but it will be by our own audit firm. Anytime you spend over $750,000 in a year in federal awards, you have to have what they call a single audit, and then they look at your grants and make sure you spend it on. And there's 14 categories that you look at, and maybe 3 or 4 will apply, and 1 could be eligibility, so it is important that we document it. And then another one will probably be time of performance, which is because we have like 4 years to identify and 4 years to spend. We did set it up in its own separate fund and keep it separate. And if I say we use the $103,000 on one invoice, because it's a lot easier to single out at one invoice than 4 million different things. So, but we did set it up in a separate fund, and they will be audited.
So separate fund meaning it's got its own line item?
Well, it'll have its own fund, it'll have its own budget, and then we'll spend money out of there.
Okay.
And we'll keep it, so that way we can keep track of it, so.
Thank you.
Okay. Public comment?
Yes, ma'am, we have one card, Jack Wamsley.
Welcome back.
I realize it's just the infancy of the project, but one of the things I didn't quite understand was the Elsinore Valley Municipal Water. What do you plan on doing with that, and where is it? Question.
Are you asking about the pond?
Yeah. Ponds where?
I believe the plan is to remove the pond, correct?
Correct. So currently there are the recycled water ponds right on Railroad Canyon Road, which are owned by Elsinore Valley Municipal Water District. We have had discussions with them in the past when we're discussing economic development possibilities, and looking at our limited opportunities for economic development, that is really taking up some prime frontage on Railroad Canyon Road. And so the idea being, if we can, we originally said, could we move those ponds? And EVMWD said, we're not sure that we need those ponds. We have an existing recycled water tank that has enough capacity to store that amount of water, but we would need to run a pretty long pipe to get the water where it needs to be. And to do that work, their thinking would be somewhere around $1 million. And so the city's interest there would be to free up some really valuable land for economic development right on Railroad Canyon Road.
Okay.
Jack, you understand where the ponds are? I mean, did you?
Well, I guess
They're at the end of the parking. They're at the end of the parking lot. You know, when you park your car at the golf course.
Yeah.
Those ponds next to the
Just
park.
that little pond there is what?
2 little ponds, but
There's 2 of them there?
yeah.
Okay. And I can't remember, is that inside our city limits?
Yes.
Just inside, isn't it? Yeah.
It's
okay.
in quite a ways, Jack.
It's where our oasis
Yeah,
is at.
well, the only
Mud
thing
gas.
is that,
Jacuzzis.
you're
Public
gonna have
comment?
to bring flood control and everything else, because that's a steady flow of water that comes that's in my district.
Okay. Any other comment cards?
No other comments.
Okay. So what we are looking to do is approve the direction at this time. So the proposed direction, a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Dane,
Aye.
Councilmember Green.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Welty.
Aye.
Mayor Castillo.
Aye.
Motion carried to approve item 16.
Thank you. Moving on to item 17.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'd like to ask our city attorney to make the presentation on this item.
Okay, thank you, Mr. City Manager, Mayor. We also should have Dave McPherson on the line from HDL. Dave, if you're there, feel free to jump in. I'll go through the items, but if there's anything you want to expand upon, feel free. We have 3 resolutions before the City Council today. These resolutions are all referenced within the cannabis regulatory ordinance that was just passed on second reading. So the first one is a resolution setting the maximum number of cannabis retailers that may operate within the city. So rather than set the maximum number in the ordinance, which is then a little clunky to amend if we ever wanted to change it, the methodology we've employed is that the ordinance says it shall be set by resolution, and then now we have a resolution that says there will be one cannabis retailer in the city of Canyon Lake. That way, the city council at a future date, maybe the city expands, maybe there's bigger demand than thought, maybe, the use isn't as much of a nuisance as we thought it would be. The city council could then raise that without too much difficulty. So that's the first one. Resolution 2021-57 is a resolution setting the maximum number at 1 currently. The second resolution before you is 2021-58. So this is establishing some of the fees that we need to have to get this program running. There are a great number of fees, renewal fees, appeal fees, that we don't have a basis for calculating yet, but in order to get the program going, we do need to have application fees set up. So you have 4 fees in front of you in the resolution. I'm going to start with the easy one, the live scan fee, which is $73. That's simply a pass-through. We do have the zoning verification letter, and we'll get into exactly what that is when we're going through the application review criteria. But essentially, that's a letter from the planning department that says the property that you're intending to apply for meets all of our locational restrictions. There's the background check fee. So this is a fee that goes through an HDL administered background program, where essentially they're making sure that the people who are applying don't have any disqualifying criminal histories. And then finally, we do have the application fee. Now you'll notice it's listed at full cost recovery. So the city has had several one-time expenses in setting up this program, and then it will have a per application expense, basically the time of the city manager, HDL, the city's consultants, my office, reviewing all the applications that come in. And so we've set it at full cost recovery, and we've estimated it to be $11,731 based on 6 applications is where HDL thinks we're going to get in the first go-around. So that is the second resolution, 2021-58. And then the final resolution is the one where we get into a little bit more detail. Those first 2 were pretty straightforward. 2021-59 is the resolution that sets up the application criteria. So just like we did with the number, just like we did with the fees, we didn't put the whole application process in the ordinance because the fact of the matter is we may want to change it as time goes on, and it's a little clunky to have every little detail inside the actual municipal code. What we have here are application procedures and guidelines, and that starts on page 358 of the packet. At the beginning is a lot of, I would call sort of boilerplate language, but I think it's really important if you're planning on applying for one of these permits to read this document and then read it again and then go to bed and then wake up and read it one more time just to make sure that you've actually read the whole thing. Because if you fail to comply with the provisions that are in this application process, your application likely will be rejected. And that's a lot of time and a lot of money. I mean, when we go into the detail here in a few minutes about what the city's going to want to see from an applicant, it would be a real shame to put all that time and effort into something only to fail to, include one of the critical components. Just to give everybody kind of a preview of what the process itself looks like, We have it divided here into 4 phases. I know on our PowerPoint, we were talking about 3 phases. After sort of talking it over and putting this together, we said, okay, 4 phases kind of makes sense conceptually, just because there are 4 different steps. There's phase 1, which is the determination of eligibility. So this is just you have filed your application, and we're going to make sure that you have included all of the required components. Those components include the zoning verification letter, which you have to get in advance. This is helpful because one of the biggest hurdles that a lot of potential businesses are going to face early on is, where am I going to put this business? And that's a big hurdle in most cities, not the least in Canyon Lake, where we basically have 2 commercial centers where this kind of thing is going to be viable. Commercial centers that have numerous existing thriving, there's tenants in these places already. And so what they're going to need to do is they're going to need to find a location where they're intending on setting up a business, and then they're going to need to secure from the owner authorization to get that zoning verification letter. They don't have to have a lease.
So, okay, that's my question, Mr. City Attorney, is that, because we're receiving a lot of questions from community members on this. You don't currently have to be occupying a location, you just have to have a lease agreement with the owner showing that you have an address, obviously a Canyon Lake in our zoned areas. Okay.
Yeah, and in fact, if you look on page 361 in the zoning verification letter section, one of the things they have to include on the application for that is, are you currently occupying it, or is there some other tenant there already? Perfect. Because what you'll see, a lot of the more savvy businesses, what they're going to be looking for is an option to lease. That is going to be how they demonstrate that they are capable of exercising control of the property. And that option will only be exercised if they actually get a permit. One of the things that, is in our code is a requirement that if you're going to lease property, that property has to be leased at fair market value. One of the reasons that's in there is to prevent a dramatic increase in rent on our existing businesses. We don't want any collateral damage from our regulatory ordinance here. And also that it has to be a fixed monthly price. It can't be a percentage of gross receipts. And there's a couple of reasons for that, not the least of which is we don't want someone who is disqualified from operating a cannabis retailer from essentially engaging in that business by being the landlord, not by being the actual business itself. So the first step is getting your zoning verification letter. To do that, you're going to need to get someone to say that you have the ability to rent that property out. You also have to go through the criminal background check. These are the 2 things that'll make a lot of people perhaps ineligible, and so that's why they're done first, and that's why they have a separate fee amount that's much lower. If your property isn't qualified, it'd be a real shame if you spent months and tens of thousands of dollars putting an application together only to find out that you're 49 feet from a church instead of 50. So get both of those done, come in, bring those, and bring the fees. Again, we're anticipating a deposit of $11,731. If we get more applications than that, we're going to be refunding some of that money back to the applicants. If we get less, we're going to be requiring them to deposit additional funds so that the city's it's cost neutral, this entire regulatory process. All of those things will be paid, and then they will look at the applications, and HDL will do kind of a screen check. They're going to go through, do you have all of the required sections, right? So do you have a business plan in there? Do you have a labor plan? Do you have a safety plan from a qualified fire safety personnel? Do you have a security plan from a qualified security consultant? Do you have the qualifications of owner sections? Do you have a neighborhood compatibility plan? And do you have a proposed location plan? So they're going to go through and just make sure that that's fine. If somebody's accidentally neglected something, they're going to be given an opportunity to correct that. And then we're going to go into phase 2. Phase 2, the entire application goes to our HDL consultants. They are going to be operating off of the evaluation criteria that's Appendix A, and they're going to be going and giving an objective score for all of the applicants. Anyone who scores, so the maximum score is 2,500 points, and the points are broken up as stated on page 362. you have to score 90% of the points or higher. So we're looking for highly qualified applicants. And when we go into the details of what's here, I mean, we're looking for people who know how to operate a business and who have experience in this industry. And so, I would encourage people, like, if you're planning on participating in this process, make sure that you know what you're doing, and either you, yourself, or you are partnered with people who are going to be able to meet the qualification requirements and meet the capitalization requirements.
Mr. City Attorney, I got a question. Since we're having this discussion right now in regards to allowing one permit, and I guess this would be more of a question for you, Mr. City Manager. Wildemar has 3 right now. Do we have any idea how many applicants they received on those 3?
Wildemar? No, I'm not sure how many they
Okay.
received.
Just curious, as we're discussing this and unfolding the criteria at which it's going to be for people to apply, in your experience, Mr. City Attorney, what's your guess? I mean, only with 1, we're probably going to have 6, 5?
So we're based on my discussions with the
Yeah.
HDL, we're looking at 6. You've got a couple of things going for you. Canyon Lake is uniquely situated along Railroad Canyon Road, next to jurisdictions who don't currently have cannabis retailers. It makes you a very valuable location. And you are offering storefront retail without any requirement that you have some industrial operation going along with it. That is the exact type of use that is in the highest demand right now.
Right.
So my expectation is that you will have a significant amount of interest.
Okay, thank you.
So we'll go through each of those sections here in a bit and what the evaluation criteria are, but I just want to give you guys a preview of, okay, so they go through, they get scored, they come back. Everyone who gets 90% or higher is going to be, those scores are going to be given to the city manager. He's going to make sure that HDL did the math right, and then he will deem them either qualified or not qualified, right? So if you're scoring less than 90%, so you don't have a good security plan, or you don't have the capitalization necessary, you're not going to be qualified, you're not going to move on. Once he's determined who's qualified, there's going to be a public meeting. So this is going to be set up in front of the city manager or his designee, and he's going to have all of those applicants who have been deemed qualified come in and give a presentation on their operation, on what their neighborhood compatibility plan is going to be like, how are they going to be good neighbors to their businesses in the city of Canyon Lake, how are they going to operate their business so that it is an asset. Additionally, and at that point, it also gives the opportunity for the community to come in and give their concerns. So
You said public meeting, is that correct, that the city
Yes.
manager will have?
Yes.
So therefore, members from the public can obviously attend along with fellow competitors?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be everyone, I mean, we're going to expect all of the people who are deemed qualified to come in and give their presentations and, show what they've got to the community. And just as much as they're trying to sell themselves and say why they're a good pick, they will also, it'll be an opportunity for the city manager to hear what the community concerns are with specific applicants. So, one of the concerns we had was, what if we have one over near the church that's in the town center? One of the questions we're going to have, and one of the evaluation sections that we have is, how are you going to address that, right? And so it gives that opportunity for the community to bring specific concerns, and then it gives an opportunity for the city manager during phase 4, which is the negotiation and interview and the final decision, for the city manager to, in addition to negotiating the community benefits, which is the ultimate deciding criteria in that section, but also to negotiate the neighborhood compatibility agreement. And so this will be the agreement where, we need some extra things from you to make sure that that specific location that you've proposed is compatible with the community, based on the feedback we got at the meeting. So that's the overview. Going into Appendix A, these are the specific evaluation criteria that HDL is going to use in Phase 2 to award the points. I'm not going to read these word for word. You guys are chugging along on item number 18 at 8:25, so I don't want to be the one that holds it up. But just sort of giving a brief overview. The first section is going to be a business plan. So one of the biggest ones here is proof of capitalization. So they're going to need to provide documentation to HDL that shows not only do they have a plan for how to operate the business, but they have the capability of actually moving forward. Because one of the things that other communities have seen is speculative applications for cannabis permits. So I'm going to go in and try to get one of the few permits available, and then I have no intention of actually operating the business. I'm just going to get that permit, and then I'm going to sit on it and try to sell it through the transfer process. Or even worse, I mean, at least that's a business plan of some kind, right? Even worse would be, I'm going to try to get that permit, and then once I get it, I have no idea how I'm actually going to operate this business because I don't have any money. So, you know, and that doesn't help the city out, because one of the reasons the city council is moving forward with this is future revenue for the city. Once we have a qualified applicant approved, we want them in business as soon as possible. Section B, this is the Labor, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Plan. This is something that primarily comes from the state, but nevertheless is an important aspect here. You know, one of the things we're going to be looking for, are you going to be hiring people from Canyon Lake? Are you going to be paying them well? Is this going to be a quality job? Or are we going to have, you know, a bunch of part-timers who aren't getting any benefits, you know, who you're bussing in to work here? We want this to be an asset to the community from all aspects. And so that's one of the things that we're going to be looking at in that section. Section C, the safety plan. So this is more the fire side. So we're looking at fire suppression. We're looking at evacuation. We want to make sure, I mean, these buildings, I mean, they have a lot of security, so we want to make sure there's no traps where someone can't get out. But they also occasionally are selling products that, you know, may be flammable because they're using solvents to make them. So we want to make sure that all of that is above board, and that'll be approved through HDL, and that has to be prepared by a professional fire prevention consultant. The security plan, this is when we're looking at how many officers are you going to have? What are their tasks going to be? You're going to have one inside, you're going to have one outside. What are their hours going to be? All of those questions that got brought up during the previous city council meeting, they're going to have to put in detail how they're going to address those specific issues. To the point where they are going to be actually submitting a premises diagram that is going to show like exactly where all these things are going to be and how they're going to make sure that this property is secure. Section E, qualification of owners. I can tell you this is one that sometimes people overlook. I mean, the fact is, I've heard people say before, I mean, how hard can running a marijuana dispensary be? You know, you can get it, you sell it, people want it, it's easy, right? It's an incredibly complicated industry. It's highly regulated, not just at our level, but also at the state level. And I assume when the federal government gets around to descheduling it, it's going to be highly regulated at the federal level as well. So you're looking for people who either have existing experience in the industry now or have comparable experience in a similar industry. So you're looking at something like liquor sales, which is regulated by the same state agency. Neighborhood compatibility plan. So one of the things we added here, number 1, list nearby well-traveled paths to schools, churches, or libraries, and describe how the cannabis business is going to proactively protect the youth on these paths from exposure to the cannabis business. I think we recorded your guys' meeting and just took your language and put it in one of the evaluation criteria. And then other things that we thought were as important. So, you know, how are you going to respond to complaints about noise and light? How are you going to manage it so it's not a nuisance? Tell us how you're going to prevent the odor from your business from impacting the neighborhood, impacting the other tenants in your building. And again, it's going to have diagrams and it's going to have vicinity maps and other things like that. And then finally, we're going to have some additional language on the proposed location. So we're going to want to make sure that they have the right zoning. We're going to want to see photographs of the building, and we're going to want to see what they're planning on making it look like when they're done. All of those things combined will generate a score objectively by HDL, and then it'll be brought forward to the city manager at the end of phase 2. So that is the third resolution of your 3. And once we have those 3 in place, we can begin the process of preparing to open the applications. There's still a whole lot of work to do. You know, the city manager, I think, it was a couple of weeks ago when we were like, okay, so we're doing this cannabis regulatory ordinance. We started putting together a checklist of every single thing that the city has to do in order to bring this about. And it is long. So you're going to see more things coming forward. You'll see more fees being established. we're going to have to have an RFP for a hearing officer because some people aren't going to like the decisions that are being made. And we have to have a process for people to appeal those. So expect to see that. You'll see fees rising out of that as well. And I think we're probably going to see the application process opening up in the next couple of months or something like that. So that's all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Any questions?
We answered mine.
Yeah. Any public comment card?
Yes, we have Rich Moline.
Welcome.
Hi, guys. More casual today, golf day, so welcome. I had two questions, but the first one was you said you anticipate the application process. We should be getting the applications in about 2 months?
Can I address that?
Or what would be the anticipated time?
I
table?
hate to even throw out a specific time frame because I don't want anyone latching on to anything. and saying,
Ballpark.
You said 2 months, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
If these resolutions are approved by the council tonight, we're still 30 days out from second reading of the ordinance going into effect. And then we really need to sit down with David McPherson, HDL, and with the city attorney and map out, figure out backwards to now how long it's going to take to execute all these things and lay out a timeline. And we have not done that yet. So obviously, if the council moves forward on these resolutions, we want to move as quickly as we can, but we're not going to be wasting time. But as the city attorney said, there's a lot to do on our end here. So we have to sit down and lay out a timeline.
I know. Believe me, I've been working on the application. It's huge.
And, I will say, the requirements to put an application packet together are extensive. So we want to make sure that we give plenty of time for interested applicants to do all the things they need to do to be able to meet all these requirements.
Okay. I just have one other question for Stephen, and that is, you talked about there's going to be a financial requirement, which I totally understand. We have to prove our financial capabilities of actually a go-forward plan. What is usually that number, or what do you anticipate the city of Canyon Lake will be looking at as far as financial resources in a cash basis that would be an acceptable number?
I appreciate you have questions. It's public comment, so generally your comments should be
Oh,
directed to the council.
I apologize, you're right.
And then the mayor will usually instruct me to answer a question. I'm not trying to be rude, but just trying to maintain the formality.
Sorry.
And not give the appearance of having any favoritism to any potential applicant.
Mayor?
Would you?
So I'd say once his comments are done, be happy to
Okay.
answer any questions.
So do you have any other comments?
No, that's all I had.
All right.
Thank you.
I think that's probably. a
Sorry to be out of order.
If there's an answer to it.
An excellent question. All I will say is I recommend all the applicants read the application review criteria and the appendix that's attached to it. I personally am not going to be reviewing applications. I frankly personally have no idea how much money a cannabis retailer is supposed to have in order to be successful. That will be one of the criteria that's evaluated by HDL, who are our industry professionals, and who will be judging that. So.
Okay. All right. Yes.
Is there a component of the application, because I don't see it, a component that talks about, that gives the applicants the opportunity to talk about community, I don't know what the right word is, but.
Benefit?
Benefit, thank you. Community benefit?
Absolutely. So ordinarily, community benefits would be one of the sections that's listed, and that would be where they're saying, here's what we're going to do for the community. However, because of the way that this city has set up its application process, that's actually going to occur in phase 4. And we didn't want any of the applicants to have an unfair advantage because they've gotten to sneak a peek at their competitors' proposed community benefits. And because these applications generally, with the exception of certain documents, one of the things we're talking about is like bank statements. I mean, those can be confidential, but for the most part, the applications are going to be public documents. And so that section is not present in the initial application. That community benefit discussion will occur in phase 3 and phase 4.
Okay. Does that answer everyone's questions? Okay. Hopefully that answers yours, Mr. Moline. Okay. So moving on, no other public comment cards? Okay. So we would need a motion and second to adopt resolutions 57, 58, and 59.
Any comments, or should I just wait till my personal comments at the end?
Well, do you have comments on this item?
It's basically on the cannabis issue. Basically, I'm more comfortable with first of all, I came to this very uncomfortable with cannabis. I just was not comfortable bringing it into the community. And every time I have a meeting, every time I talk to people, I get more and more comfortable with the direction we're going. So I just want to say, I feel like we're doing what I think is going to be a good thing. And just second comment is I watched a TV show called The Cannabis Question. It was basically put out by Nova. Everybody knows Nova PBS. And if you have any concerns about marijuana, you ought to watch that show. And from that show, I can clearly tell you they believe cannabis is a drug, and that, like most drugs, there are good things about the drug and there are bad things about the drug. But I think the community should be very educated, your parents, about the benefits that provides, which I think are a benefit to the community and to society, and the consequences that it provides. So please, especially if your parents or grandparents, please see the show, because one of the things they commented on being detrimental was to teenagers, that the use of marijuana for teenagers in a developing mind was not good at all. They also made comments about the cost, the criminality of marijuana has cost the society. By making it a criminal action, it has cost us a huge amount of economic and personal and family issues. So, and the other side of it is they are really doing the research, and there's a lot of support that says if you have a certain condition, marijuana has the potential to take your condition and give you a much better life. But don't mix and match. You can't say it's going to make a teenage kid be a better kid when he smokes it his whole life versus somebody that has a specific medical need that uses it. So it's an apples and oranges. So everyone, I just recommend you, if you have a chance and you're interested, look at the Cannabis Question on Nova.
Thank you. I didn't know about that, and I will look into that. Any other comments? No. Okay. Motion and a second to adopt Resolution 57, 58, and 59.
Motion.
Second.
Okay. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Dane?
Aye.
Councilmember Green?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith?
Aye.
Councilmember Welty?
Aye.
Mayor Castillo?
Aye.
Motion carried to adopt resolutions number 2021-57, 58, and 59.
Thank you. Our last business item tonight is the fire department startup update from our interim fire chief.
Good evening
Welcome.
again. Madam Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council, city staff, Jeff Latenders, your interim fire chief. In case you're curious how many more days till Christmas or shopping, I've got some calendars up there for you to keep track. We've got about 3 more months left, and so we still have a lot of work to do, but we've also accomplished a whole lot of work thus far. We go live January 1st, 2022, 8 o'clock in the morning. We continue to make progress. We will have our command staff scheduled to begin working on November 29th, and the engineers and firefighters will begin work the following week on December 6th. So, believe it or not, our fire engine has come to life. That's actually it being built at the factory in Appleton, Wisconsin. From start to finish, it only takes about 8 weeks, they say. So while we've been in line and we ordered this fire engine way back in February, a lot of it has been in line, in the queue, waiting our turn to get onto the assembly line, getting all the equipment in place. And so now it's our turn to actually start having construction occur. They expect to have the fire engine completed November 17th. At that point, there'll be an inspection trip where personnel will go back there. The engine, once the inspection is done, will be driven by the company here to Ontario, where it will be prepped and outfitted so that we can put it into service in the middle of December. Are there any concerns as we move along through this part of the process? Talking to the manufacturer yesterday, they're having an issue with axles right now. So what they're actually doing is they're putting temporary axles on the fire engine so they can move them through the assembly line, keep everything in progress, and then when their real axles show up, they swap out the axles and everything keeps moving. So as of today, we are on track to have delivery as we expected back in February when we first ordered the fire engine. Our Type 6 fire engine is currently being built in a plant in New York. Again, it's supposed to be delivered here in the middle of December. I'm sorry, it's supposed to be finished in the middle of December. And then again, there's another inspection trip back there. The engine will be brought back to the same dealer here in Ontario. It'll be prepped, it will be outfitted, and we should have delivery of that vehicle, we expect, in the middle of December. Any concerns with this one? Again, talking to the manufacturer, the roll-up doors are something they're having problems getting right now. So that could delay the delivery of the engine. This engine's not as critical as a Type 1 engine. When we get it, it's going to be winter. You know, we don't expect to have any wildland environment situations out there, but it's also used for rescue operations. So if we did have to go off-road into the BLM, it's still the vehicle that we would take out to that area. So it does have a purpose. We do want to get it here as quickly as possible. If we have any issues, I should go back to the Type 1 engine. Our backup plan for that one is the current engine 60 that is at the fire station, belongs to the city and all the equipment on board. So we will be able to start operations regardless of the equipment coming in on time. But again, it's our expectation that everything will be here on time. Our command vehicles, as I reported earlier, those are running about 4 months late. We ordered those back in April, and now they're expected to be delivered in November. Still gives us enough time. The person that actually converts the Dodge Durango into a command vehicle is located about 1.5 miles outside the North Gate. So a very reputable company. He has ordered all the equipment, and he is set up and ready to go once the vehicles get there. So we expect that we'll be able to put all the radios, computers, and emergency lighting into those vehicles and have them ready when we go live on January 1st. The recruitment process, we just finished up last week. We had almost 90 applicants for the 5 positions that we are hiring for. We invited 45 individuals to interviews. I've been sitting on interviews for the past 2 weeks. It was a grueling process. We had professionals from various fire departments in Riverside, San Diego County. Our medical director, Doc Foster, participated in our paramedic process, gave the paramedics actual scenarios and dealing with a simulated patient and testing their medical knowledge as we went through. We currently, as of yesterday, put 24 of those individuals into background process. That essentially covers all the ranks except for one rank that we're still working on. The background process will be a live scan, a criminal check, DMV check, a workers' comp check, a educational check, a employer check. So it's a fairly extensive background that the individuals will be going through. And once we complete that, then they go into the medical component. If you saw upstairs in the old library, we've got turnouts up there where we've been sizing everybody. We have to order the turnouts by tomorrow, essentially, so that they guarantee that the turnouts of the protective clothing will be here in time for us to start, not on January 1st, but we need this equipment when we bring the people on board in December and November so that they can start training for their positions. The concern with the personal protective equipment, strangely enough, they say yellow helmets. We can get red helmets, we can get white helmets, but the material they use to make yellow helmets is in short supply. It's interesting time trying to do this during a pandemic with all the issues that we have been going on. Tonight, if you look at what was approved tonight in regards to the fire department, yet I wasn't up here speaking a lot tonight, it shows the teamwork and the unification that has come together in the city to get all those other things that aren't fire, but definitely support fire done. So what did we have? We had a second reading on the ordinance to create a fire department. We had a second hearing on the fireworks. We had a public hearing on the fire code, human resource support, payroll. Payroll is really something unique to the fire service, as we have what's called the Fair Labor Standard Act and certain requirements of when overtime kicks in and the work week and so forth. So we have to make sure that we're using a company that understands all of that stuff. The defined contribution program and deferred comp was approved tonight. The insurance component of it, it really is amazing. When I went through what I've learned about insurance in the last 3 months, I just assumed it was workers' comp, but there's a whole lot more to the insurance process than just workers' comp. So that's all again being done. Something as simple as having a credit card. How are we going to fill up our fire engines when we go to the gas station? If we go out on a strike team, getting the materials and the supplies that we need. So again, to the city manager, to all the city staff, from our finance director, we had Ruby in code enforcement sit on our oral interview process. All the work that Kayla has been doing in human resources and validating what we have been doing in the written test, in the oral interviews. Kayla set through the simulation that the captains and battalion chiefs had to go through on a video simulator. So the whole team, the entire city staff has been stupendous as we've been working together to get everything done. What do we still have to do? Well, there's still a lot we have to do. We have to finalize those mutual and automatic aid agreements. I'm meeting tomorrow with more of our partners, our stakeholders out there, to try to work through those issues. This recruitment has taken a lot of time, and I got to get back to work on the EMS application for our paramedic program. Very important that we get that done next. That's my next target. Developing our training plan for the new hires and finding a location where we're going to train them. Another important key aspect. Finalizing the fire station remodel project and purchasing all that equipment that's going to go into the fire station, from computers and desk and the telephone systems and all that has to go in with that. Continuing to work on our policy manual, and that was talked about because we're to use that for when we onboard our new personnel. And then our computer programs. Sir, you talked about that tonight. We've got to get computer programs for EMS and for records management and for personnel. And so we've got to get those online. We've got to get those programs implemented and ready to go. So on the computers and the equipment, the concerns that I'm hearing out there as we're purchasing things, our initial vendor for fire hose said, well, we'll have it there to you in February. That's not going to work. So we found another vendor that's going to be able to deliver to us in November, December timeframe. So we're moving forward. I want to be upfront with the concerns that are out there, but we are working through all of the concerns, and we are 100% optimistic that January 1st we will be ready to go. We're so optimistic, in fact, that we are ready to issue to the council tonight your official patches. Mayor Pro Tem.
That's cool.
Dean. Thank you. Member Green.
These are nice looking.
Yeah, I know. You'll have to come to work for us, Jack, but you missed the application process. So again, I'm just wanting to let everything be known of where we are at and everything. I'm still very confident. There's still a lot of work to do. The city's team is coming together, and we're accomplishing everything. We've made great strides, as you can see with your patch there, and we'll continue to make great strides, and we'll continue to give our updates. So I'm available for any questions if you have them.
I have a question. So I've had a couple conversations with various members of our community, most of them who are in the fire service. And one of the questions was, what's the status of our auto and mutual aid agreements? Have we received the language back from the county at all on that?
We have not. The last conversation I had with the county fire chief was the language was at county council. I emailed the county fire chief about a week ago, and we have not got a reply yet.
Okay, so we're waiting on the county attorneys?
That's what we were last told.
Okay. Questions?
Mayor, I'd just like to point out that the agreement was the county's own language. They sent it over to us. We didn't modify it significantly, so
Okay.
I don't see why there would be a need for extensive legal review of that document.
So we're just waiting on.
Just waiting.
Okay. Questions? Questions?
Got a lot of questions, but are you having any trouble with having trouble getting in safety uniforms?
No, I'm actually meeting with the vendor on Friday, and he has not anticipated any problems getting our station uniforms in.
Who are you getting them through?
We're getting through a local uniform vendor in Murrieta.
Okay, good.
Any other questions? No. Okay, questions from you? Questions? Councilmember Welty?
I'm good.
You're good? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right. Was there any public comment cards?
There's no comments on this.
Okay. City manager comments.
No comments this evening.
Okay. Council comments, 3 minutes each.
Wait, what?
He said no comments.
Okay.
That's
Councilmember Dane.
Mine will be very brief, too. I just, coming into this council late, later than everybody else, and very, very far through the process for the fire department, I'm blown away by how much is being done. And I'm very impressed and proud to be a part of this. And very proud of the chief for what he's done. So thank you.
All right,
My
thank you.
turn?
That was a nice comment. Yes.
Okay, I was going to turn it on. I've actually had quite a busy month, actually 2 months, because RCA met after our council meeting. And so mainly
I'm sorry, can you speak a little louder? I'm having a hard time hearing you.
is that better?
Yes.
Okay. I've had 2 meetings with the RCA, both on the 13th of October, or 13th of March, 13th of September and the 4th of October, mainly talking about the mitigation fees and other things. But what's important is prepayment by the developers, which doesn't really affect us yet, but it will if we get the BLM land. But there's also putting together a stakeholders committee for RCA, which will be members at large that represent different groups, the building industry, those who have an interest in the ecology, and those who work in the industry, and that can be either people that develop land or whatever. And so the chair was in Washington working on some grants, and so they will be putting out this week. The applications are out. I have a couple of people of Canyon Lake who have an interest. So I will be having them submit their names in for the application process. But it's a board of about 16 people, Western Riverside represented. So it's might be a good chance for us to get some more Canyon Lake representation. We had a town hall meeting, which the mayor and I attended with Senator Melendres at the Canyon Cowboy, and well attended. She did an outstanding job of doing her legislative updates as far as what's passed and what the state of our current assembly and everything else is going on. So that was well attended, and the golf tournament went well. We brought the trophy back. We're actually making some modifications. Hopefully, we're going to try to get most of Western Riverside cities to participate next year. So it will be a true city competition. And with that, I hope my 3 minutes are not done, but I'm done.
Very good. Mayor Pro Tem Smith?
Absolutely. Busy. The mayor and I had the opportunity to go with our city manager and city attorney to Sacramento. A lot of very interesting things coming out of the league. A lot of things that don't necessarily Canyon Lake would be part of, but nonetheless very educational. Allowed us to network with a bunch of different cities and discuss certain projects that we're working on. Couple housekeeping items. Canyon Lake, I always love getting this report. Average sold price for our homes here in Canyon Lake are $676,000. Our median sold price is $600,000. Value is absolutely phenomenal here in Canyon Lake. Out of the entire region, we are number 2 to none other than Temecula, so that's pretty impressive. And a couple updates in regards to RCTC. As most of you know, you commuters out there, the express lanes are now open. And we got a couple things to be mindful of. Those of you who drive on the 215 Placentia Avenue Bridge will be closed for 10 months, so there'll be some delay in traffic there. And then our construction is underway for the 1591 Express Lane corridor, so that's ongoing. For RTA, not much to report there. Our fearless leader, Larry Rubio, well respected across most agencies, is going to be retiring, so we've been working on finding his replacement. And that's been quite the process. I serve on that committee. And last, SCAG, not much to report, just a bunch of chaos and finding new ways to tax our residents. So that concludes my report.
Not much to report. Okay. Councilmember Welty?
Just some comments. We talked about the Alum a little bit coming next week. This is not a city-driven project. This is driven by the Lake Elsinore and San Jacinto Watershed Authority. So just to let you know that that is not a city thing, but still it will impact our residents. They will see the alum out there. And as I said earlier, I please all you parents of teenagers watch the cannabis question. It give you some real information on teenagers and marijuana. And all of the people think marijuana is the worst thing that ever came to the planet Earth. Please also watch that, because you'll see that there's some real benefits to cannabis, and if you look at it objectively, I think it'll at least it made me feel a lot better about where we're heading. So if you have that chance and you have big questions or about cannabis, that would be, I thought it was the best hour of information I've seen in a long time. Thank you.
Thank you. For my update, I wanted to say that I appreciate the citizens of our community that continue to reach out with questions on the fire department. I take extensive notes. I pass those along to our chief and the city manager so that those concerns are heard and addressed. We did go, myself and Mayor Pro Tem, city manager, city attorney, to the league meeting in Sacramento. Not so much that applied to Canyon Lake, but I did go to a class and discussion about cannabis. A lot of it was lead up to, an ordinance, which we'd already addressed by the time we went to that class, but then additional information as the process took place. There was a case study from Bellflower, which is somewhat similar to Canyon Lake, although obviously a little bit bigger, but a lot of the same concerns of the citizens, a very conservative community that was initially resistant, and their mayor and I believe city manager spoke on that, and it was very enlightening, and I did learn a lot. I additionally went on a field trip today to Wildemar, to one of their dispensaries, to look at different ones. I know a lot of my colleagues have also kind of gone on field trips to see various formats and retail locations in different cities. I found the Wildemar one off of Clinton Keith to be something that would be similar to what I believe we would have in the town center. Very unremarkable frontage, which made me feel better. I did go inside. It was clean, very, very feeling secure, well organized, and there was not people who just hanging out. There were no, it was business and leave. So I have received some emails from citizens. I believe a couple of them have also gone on field trips and told me what they were, what surprised them, and then also things to be on the lookout for. So we've obviously been taking note of those considerations and concerns of the residents. We did have our first Veterans Committee meeting, which was great and productive, and I'm super energized and excited about that group and what we have planned for the Veterans Day, which will be a Thursday this year. Our next Veterans Committee meeting is the 18th of this month at 5. If you are interested in attending and volunteering or have input, please come. It is here in Council Chamber, and we would love to have you. And beyond that, our next regular meeting will be Wednesday, November 3rd at 5 for closed session and 6:30 for open session. And beyond that, we are adjourned at 8:59.